What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast Live Edition. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter at @_Cuesta30 and find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Should be a really good one for everyone. It was started off as a great one for me as I went out and shot the best game of golf I ever shot with my father-in-law, Jody Koch. So started off really well, and it happens to be my first Father's Day ever, as my beautiful daughter Josephine is going to be 4 months soon, and me and my wife can't be happier to have her. So to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day to all of you. I hope it's a good one. I hope you get to enjoy it with your family, and I hope you actually get to listen to this a little bit and enjoy a little bit of sports talk. If you want to be a part of this, if you have my phone number, you could shoot me a call, you could shoot me a text, and I will right away get your question on the air. I'll address it. We'll talk about it. You can tweet me on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Send the question in there and I'll respond. You can go on Facebook, on my Facebook, Alex Cuesta, or even the Sports Opinions Facebook page, which is started, the Sports Opinions Podcast. You could search for that. So there's a bevy of ways that you can get involved, and I hope you all do. And to start it off, I'm going to start off with someone who wanted to get involved, the person that's always behind me all the time, my wife, Juliana. I love you so much. You're the greatest. And she started off with a question. I'll give some backstory to this question because there was a major incident with the Ottawa Senators in hockey with their star, Erik Karlsson, defenseman. He's their captain as well. And one of their better forwards, a 20-goal-a-year guy, basically, in Matt Hoffman. But it has really nothing to do with them. Those two don't have the issue. The issue is when it comes to their significant others. Now, apparently, Erik Karlsson's wife is accusing Matt Hoffman's fiancée, Monica Carrick, of harassing her. And unfortunately for the Karlssons, they had a stillborn child back in March, which is a tragedy. And Karlsson's wife is alleging that Hoffman's fiancée uttered things like she wished that she hoped that the kid came out dead, that she wished that Hoffman's wife was dead, that she wished that someone would take Hoffman's legs out and end his career. And now there is in Canada, it's called a peace order. It's basically an order of protection that we have in the United States. But in a peace order where if someone is, they think that they might commit a crime, that they have to keep the peace. So this is a huge rift in that locker room. And Matt Hoffman came out and denied the allegations. And said that they're like 150% false against him and his fiancée. So this is becoming a fiasco with the Senators, who really don't need this. And my wife's question, basically, Julie's question is, in a nutshell, I'll read it out here. How much does off-the-ice/court issues affect play? Emotionally affect players? Does it physically affect their play? Does trouble with significant others cause tension in the locker room? And is it right to have to trade someone because of their significant other? Should their significant others be held to the same standards in terms of appearance in the community and social media as the players themselves? So I'll kind of touch a little bit on all this. I think we could see that the play is affected by a lot of off the court, off the ice, off the field stuff. One of the best examples I saw was Tony Romo. My wife's very familiar with Tony Romo. She's a big Cowboys fan, but he was a undrafted player, probably one of the greatest undrafted quarterbacks to ever play the game. And he started off like a bat out of hell. And then he started dating Jessica Simpson. And it's not really Jessica's fault, but his play definitely dipped during his time that he was playing, when he was dating her. And then once he broke up with her, his play elevated again. Now, it's, again, nothing against Jessica Simpson, but it goes to show you that off the court, off the ice stuff, off the field stuff can really affect players and how they play. And this is something right now that's going on that going forward, Hoffman and Karlsson have to play together. They're on the same team. They go in the same locker room. The wives share the same wives club. This is going to affect their play if something isn't done. So the emotional aspect, sports is a lot of emotion. So the emotional aspect is going to affect the physical play because on your mind, yeah, you everyone's worked with, everyone's played with people they don't like for personal reasons. But when it comes to attacking your family, attacking your stillborn child, and if you think someone did that, that's someone you're not even just going to want to be around at all because you probably want to fight them. You really hate them. So I really think it does affect the play. In terms of trading someone because they're a significant other, Erik Karlsson's been on the trade block for a little bit now. He's been in rumors to be going to the New York Rangers of all teams. He has 1 year left on his contract, and it's not sure if the Senators are going to extend him. Normally, when a player has 1 year left, they look to trade him so they can get something back if they don't think the player will resign. Hoffman has 2 years left on his contract, and he's a very good goal scorer. So it's one of those things where the Senators are in a rock and a hard place. You can't keep Hoffman and Karlsson on the same team with what's going on right now. And unfortunately, what's going on with significant others is going to affect what's going on with this team and the choices that they're going to make. Now, they're going to come out. They're investigating the matter right now, and they're going to come out and say all the right things. They're going to say, oh, we can get along. We can overcome this. We're going to get to the bottom of this, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is humans are humans, and especially hockey players who are tough guys. You're not going to want to keep that type of tension, that type of animosity in your locker room. I think it's more than likely that Karlsson gets traded. But should it happen? Unfortunately, yeah. And it goes into the next question. Should significant others be held to the same standards in terms of appearance in the community, social media, etc.? And yeah, I think this goes with any public figure. When you're a public figure, everything that you do is in the spotlight. It's in the limelight. And your family also is a reflection of that. And they need to be held to a standard because if your family does something egregious, it's going to affect you. If someone makes a racist, sexist statement or kills someone, it's going to affect you and your star and your clout. And especially when we see on these sports teams, the wives and the families tend to get very close. When it's something like this, and now it's going to affect the other families because they're all a tight-knit group. So this is going to be something that, unfortunately, I do have to say that they should be held to the same standard. And this is probably not the first nor the last time that we will hear about this. And there's probably happens a lot of things like rifts like this cause trades a lot of times that we don't even know about. One of the things I can think of right away is the Kardashians and the Kardashian effect that they have on players. Chris Humphries for the Nets when he was on my Nets at the time. He was a double-double machine. He got married to Kim Kardashian for a whole 5 minutes, and after that, his career tanked. Tristan Thompson, another Kardashian. He goes in the thing. It's a big deal that he cheats on her. He disappears for the rest of the season, even after he got paid. So it's one of those things that, yes, off-the-court stuff can affect people, and significant others should definitely be held to a similar, if not the same, standard as the other players that they are with. If you have an opinion about that, you agree with me, disagree with me, definitely make sure you leave a comment, give a call, shoot me a text, and I'll talk more about it, and we'll really get into this. Again, if you're just joining, you are listening to the Sports Opinions Podcast live stream. I'm your host, Alex Cuesta, and we're going to jump into a few other things. Right now, today, not only is it Father's Day, but it is Yankees Old Timers Day, and that matters to me because I'm a Yankees fan. And it's a fun day. There's a lot of great Yankees of the past. There's a lot of Yankees legends. So the Old Timers Day means a lot to these players. And when they get invited back, a lot of them really, really enjoy it and really take it to heart. And right now the game's going on as we speak. It's something that's really, really cool. I think that it's something that more teams should do. If they don't, I might be naive to it because I'm a Yankees fan. But if they don't, they should. But Old Timers Day is great. And what the Yankees are doing this year is absolutely great. We can do a little Yankees-Mets talk right now because it's a tale of two teams. I've said this before back when I was doing my New York Weekly Sports Update, which didn't work out too well. That's trashed. But back when we go back to that, they flip-flopped. Mets started off bat out of hell. Yankees started off kind of mediocre, and they've switched since then. The Yankees have the best team in the American League, best record in the American League, one of the best records in baseball, and they just continue plugging away. And they're getting a lot of production from their young guys, from Torres, from Andujar, from Judge, from a lot of the young players. And even while Sanchez, Stanton, Didi Gregorius breaking out of his slump, but he was slumping, Brett Gardner, as some of their stars slump, they are having everything come together for their younger guys. And it's something that the Mets haven't been able to find. The Mets are relying on a lot of older players. They're relying on a lot of pitching. And their pitching, as well as it is, Jacob deGrom has been a Cy Young candidate pitcher this year. If Max Scherzer doesn't exist, Jacob deGrom is running away with it. The guy has been lights out. I think he's given up 2 runs over his last 11 starts, and the Mets are 2-9. What the hell more can a guy do if his team is not giving him any sort of support? So deGrom's in a situation. Syndergaard, before his injury, was pitching not Syndergaard-esque, but he was pitching well. You're getting decent starts out of Lugo. You're getting, a little bit from everyone. The starting pitching has not been the problem for the Mets. The fact of the matter is they're getting 0 to 2 runs a game. A 3 to 4 run game is an explosion for them. And it's just really sad to see the way the Mets started. Mickey Callaway's getting a lot of flack, the rookie manager. I don't think Mickey deserves a lot of the flack that he's getting. He is dealing with what he has. I don't think any manager could do any better than what he's doing right now. The starting pitching staff is doing their job. You have Gazelman coming out the pen, who has been lights out of the pen. And some of their pen guys, they're a little shaky, but that's the nature of guys coming out of the pen. They're not always going to be great. When you look at the Yankees pen has been solid, but it started off shaky. A guy that's been a Yankees scapegoat all year has been Dellin Betances. And Dellin Betances has, I think, given up 0 runs in the last 13 innings. They've all been 1-inning stints, but maybe he's only good for an inning. He comes in, he pitches lights out, and he keeps the Yankees in games. So right now, the Yankees and the Mets, I would love to see the Mets pick it up. I want to see the Yankees continue to play well. But for Mets fans, your best hope is trading Jacob deGrom. And I know Mets fans are tired of hearing it. They want to keep him. They want to keep both him and Syndergaard and build around pitching. That's great. But what are you going to build around if you have no farm? Nimmo's been good. Rosario's been disappointing. You brought back up Dom Smith, who isn't very good. You don't have much in your farm. Your farm is considered one of the worst in the MLB. So what more do you have? So right now, your best bet is trading deGrom. As a Yankees fan, I would love to get deGrom. I think Mets could get a lot from the Yankees. A package that would include, I know Yankees fans are going to grumble, but Torres is the untouchable. Andujar is a great hitter. He's been amazing. But if you're going to give up either Torres or Andujar, it's going to be Andujar. And even though Cashman, I believe, came out and said that Andujar is untouchable, he's touchable. A package to get deGrom would probably have to include Andujar, probably have to include someone like Clint Frazier. More than likely going to have to throw in either a Chance Adams, a Justice Sheffield. So it's going to be a heavy package and a heavy hit from our farm. But it's going to be worth it to get deGrom, who has another 3 years, I believe, left on his contract, including this one. And you put him next to Luis Severino, you're pitching with 2 aces, and come playoff time, you can win World Series with 2 aces. And that's just the bottom line, because you get 4 wins right there, right away in every series. So it's not hard to see, and with this lineup, deGrom would get run support, and he would love it. So, and we know deGrom can pitch in New York. He's doing it. He's doing it with the Mets. So I would love to see that trade, but there's going to be plenty of other suitors for deGrom. But if the Mets, if you're Sandy, you can't be an idiot. You can't hold this grudge against the Yankees that Mets seem to do when it comes to dealing with them. Just make the trade that's best for your franchise. Don't be an idiot. If it happens to be with the Yankees, make it with the Yankees. Because any 3 position players basically in the Yankees farm would start for the Mets and probably be their 2, 3, 4 hitters. So be smart. Be smart for Mets fans. They might be mad at you now, but when they're seeing the ball fly out of the park and they're winning games, no one's going to remember. That brings me on to another issue. I just talk New York sports there, and I listen to a lot of New York sports talk radio. And one of the things between WFAN and ESPN, I hear a lot of Mets talk, Yankees talk, Giants, Jets, Knicks. Some Rangers, but barely any Devils, barely any Islanders, and barely any Brooklyn Nets. My issue right now is the fact that I hear barely any Nets, and I know some of my friends grumble, well, no Nets have no fans. No one wants to hear about the Nets because they suck. Okay, but they'll still continue to talk about the Mets, and they'll continue to talk about the Knicks, who are 2 of the worst teams in their respective leagues. Like, come on. The sports talk radio, they pander to exactly who they like. That's one of the issues in opinion radio. I know they're in the New York area, but in the New York area, there's more than just the few teams that they talk about. I get it. Talking about the Yankees are successful. Talk about them. But if you're going to talk about the Mets ad nauseum, who are a bad baseball team, if you're going to talk about the Knicks ad nauseum, who have been bad for a few decades now, it makes no sense for people to say, well, why, don't talk about the Nets. No one cares. Evan Roberts gets destroyed on the fan because he's a Nets fan, and he brings up the Nets. But when you look at it realistically, Porzingis, if he can't play this year, the Brooklyn Nets are going to be better than the New York Knicks, and it's not going to be close. The New York Knicks are going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA without Porzingis. There's grandeur of Kyrie coming in 2019. They're thinking that possibly they can get Kawhi Leonard. Knicks fans love to fantasize. They really do. I hear a lot of Knicks fans going, what if? They still think that the mecca of basketball, the Garden, is really a draw to people when in any market with social media, with the internet, any player can get big. Russell Westbrook is one of the biggest stars in the NBA. He is one of the fashion guys in the NBA with all the stuff he wears, and everyone knows who Russell Westbrook is. The guy plays in Oklahoma City, a small little town that is not known for their sports. And you're going to tell me that he's going to give up his star in Oklahoma City to come and possibly play in the Garden and maybe win 40 games and fight for an 8 seed in the playoffs? Hell no. Why would he want to do that? So Knicks fans are just completely delusional. The people that talk about the Knicks ad nauseum on the radio are completely delusional. One of the things I give Mike Francesa, who's back on the fan, credit for is he doesn't talk about the Knicks unless the Knicks do something. If a fan calls up, he kind of squashes them. And he said he's not going to talk about them until they do something. And they don't do anything. They're not winning. They're not making great moves. No one knows where Frank Ntilikina is. LeBron's not coming. So stop that. LeBron isn't coming. Kyrie maybe hinted at it, but I doubt he's coming. There's the rumors that the Celtics might be willing to trade Kyrie for the number 9 pick to the Knicks. If that happens, I'll eat my words. But don't hold your breath. The Knicks are in a worse spot than the Nets because they haven't developed any of their players. The Nets are developing players right now. They have young players like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. They have Caris LeVert. They have Spencer Dinwiddie, who has trade value, who could say more than anyone else on the Knicks. Outside of Kristaps Porzingis, whose injuries might bring his trade value down, the Knicks have nobody else of trade value. No one wants anyone on the Knicks. And if no one wants anyone on your teams, then that's a problem. When Michael Beasley is leading your team, that's a problem. So the Knicks fans right now, they're probably going to be mad at me. They're going to say I'm a Nets homer. But yeah, I am Nets homering a little bit because no one gives any love to the Brooklyn Nets. And the Brooklyn Nets are just as good of a team, which isn't saying much, as the Knicks. And I'm just tired of hearing New York sports radio never say anything about the Brooklyn Nets. They deserve a little bit of coverage at least, and not just a blip on the Sports Minute when season is going on. Speaking of the NBA, I'm gonna touch on a little bit of the NBA Finals right now, which was god awful. The NBA Finals were bad. The NBA playoffs were bad. They were boring. It was awful basketball. It was disappointing basketball. We could start from the beginning. LeBron struggled in every single series that he played in. He had to go to 7 in 2 of them, and he got swept by Golden State. LeBron's greatness was fun to watch itself. Outside of that, it was awful. The disappointment of the Toronto Raptors getting swept by LeBron because I don't know what it is. They're just scared of the man. That was awful. Him having go 7 to beat the Indiana Pacers and Victor Oladipo looking like a bona fide star. Good for you, Oladipo. He's up for most improved player of the year, and he's going to win it. He's up there against one of my best players in the Nets, Spencer Dinwiddie. He's going to beat Spencer Dinwiddie. He's going to deserve it because Victor Oladipo was fantastic this year. But by no means were the Indiana Pacers good enough to take LeBron to 7 games. That just goes to show you how bad the rest of the Cavaliers were, and that's also on LeBron. I've talked about him before, where he takes all of his money and then expects GMs to put a great team around him. Ain't going to work that way. We'll talk more about LeBron and where he's going later in this because that could take forever talking about where he might go. But You look at in terms of the rest of the playoffs, one of the biggest, just going back from the beginning, Houston versus Golden State was supposed to be the marquee series. That was supposed to be the series that is basically the championship, and whoever wins that's going to win it all. And it very well might have been, because if Houston might have won, they probably would have beaten Cleveland too, with the way Cleveland played. But let's look at it. The games were bad. I think 5 out of the 7 games were decided by 20 plus points. All it was who was missing more of their threes that night, and then the other team ran away with it. People enjoy this style of basketball. They enjoy the ball movement. They enjoy the open shots. They enjoy 40 plus threes, 50 plus threes by each team. I think it sucks. And that series was exactly what we're going to get from every team, because every team is trying to become Golden State. Every team is trying to just jack up threes, and the mid-range game is dead. The back to the basket is dead. All it is easy cut lanes for layups and dunks and driving threes. It's good ball movement, but it's bad basketball overall. Because if you're not hitting your threes like Houston wasn't doing in Game 7 and they're clanking everything, what were they, 3 for 27 or something? It was at one stretch, or they were just awful. That is not fun to watch. That is very, very, very bad basketball. Nobody wants to see that. And with Chris Paul being out, that didn't help Houston. But you can ask anyone. This playoffs, this finals was awful in the NBA, and it definitely hurt the NBA's clout. Because fans are coming away with this going, where they got a finals that nobody wanted to see. Because nobody wanted to see a LeBron Cavaliers who limped into the finals against a Golden State team that seemed like they didn't care if they were there or not. And Kevin Durant now coming out and trying to be a tough guy. You're not tough, Kevin Durant. You joined a team, a super team already, and made them better. That's, you got your 2 chips. I'm tired of the people going, oh, Kevin Durant with 2 championships. He has to now be talked about. His legacy. What legacy? You relied on 2 of the greatest shooters of all time. Draymond Green, who's a glue guy. Yeah, you got better on defense and all this because you didn't have to focus on a lot. So, to me, Durant's legacy was tarnished the moment he went over to Golden State. You got beat by Golden State, so you joined them. Your legacy's done. It's worse than what LeBron did going over to the Heat. It's much worse. I don't hate Durant for doing it like a lot of people do. I don't think he ruined the NBA because super teams are fun when they're the right way, when it's done the right way. Durant joining them just made it a video game. That's the type of thing that you do in 2K when you want to make your team all powered. So, whatever. Durant got 2 rings. Everyone's clamoring that Curry didn't get a Finals MVP. For what? Because he had one really good 3-point shooting game and he played well in Game 4. I'm sorry, he missed the game in Game 3. So, it was so bad. It was so bad. So, my wife leaves a comment. Julie is just super active. She says she was more interested in the finals because HQ Trivia would give away more money. For those of you that don't play, HQ is a trivia game that you can download. It's a free trivia game on an app. Download it on your smartphone, your iPhone, Pixel, Chrome, Galaxy, whatever it is. And it was giving away on the games of the finals nights. It was giving away bigger prize amounts. Game 1 was $100,000, 2, $200,000, 3, $300,000, so on and so forth. And if further it went, it was going to get up to $700,000 if it got to a Game 7. And those games, it was just funny. So yeah, HQ actually helped out the NBA because it got people interested in them playing more games. I don't know if it got them more viewers, but it got them playing more games. Now, what it should have done it for is for hockey. And the host of HQ, Scott Rogowski, obviously a hockey fan because he talked about it. He should have done it for hockey because the Stanley Cup Finals, that's where it was at. Alexander Ovechkin finally getting over the hump, winning that championship, and cementing his legacy as one of the best players of all time. That was beautiful. You're not supposed to touch the cup? He don't care. Alex touched the cup. The story was great getting there. It was Ovechkin. It was Holtby. It was Backstrom playing against the expansion Golden Knights led by Marc-Andre Fleury and Mascheralt, and just a upstart young team. And honestly, the Capitals took them to school. And they saw blood, they smelled blood, and they jumped in and they jumped right on it. And it was great to see for Ovechkin. He has a great first name, Alexander. Yeah, obviously. And he it was just awesome to see for Alexander Ovechkin that he finally gets over that hump. He finally wins. And the Capitals now have the monkey off their back. They got two monkeys off their back. They beat the Penguins in a series in the playoffs, which they didn't do. And then they finally won their Stanley Cup. It's a beautiful thing. The Capital District deserves it. Alexander Ovechkin deserves it. And just wonderful stuff from the NHL. Now, I wish NHL got more notoriety. I wish they had a better commissioner because Gary Bettman doesn't do him any favors. But my boy Jerry Gaskill, I know he's a massive hockey fan. Matt Santos, you've heard him here before. Huge hockey fan. Colton Gesser, you've heard him here as well. Big hockey fans, all three of them. I know they were all focused intently watching. So I think there needs to be more notoriety for hockey. Hockey's a great game. Me and my wife went to go see it live, a Devils game, when they played the Islanders, because I'm a Devils fan, but I wanted to go see Tavares play, and he didn't disappoint because Tavares is a monster. And seriously, Lamoriello, lock up Tavares. Now that you're there with the Islanders, lock up your best player. You'd be stupid not to. But we went there, and it's just fun to watch. And it's one of those games that you can even put on the TV, and people enjoy the hits. And then when they see a guy with great skill, even people that know nothing about the game will enjoy the game. So hockey definitely needs to get more notoriety. And overall, that's one of the greatest times of the year when you have Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals going on at the same time. It was great for different reasons. It was great because NHL was so great, and NHL definitely overshadowed NBA. I heard it all the time on the Sports Talk Radio. A lot of the talking heads on Sports Talk Radio would say they'd have the NBA Finals on, but they would switch over, and they would get hooked by the NHL Finals, and they would forget that the NBA playoffs were going on, and they would just get hooked, and they'd watch the game, and then they'd turn back, and the game would be almost over in the NBA. That's what the NHL was able to do this year, and NBA needs to take note, because I guarantee NBA's ratings were still better overall, but they need to take note that the NHL, the Stanley Cup Finals, definitely dug in a little there with how bad the NBA playoffs were. So here's to hoping that something happens next year, a little shakeup happens in the NBA, that they can make a little bit, I don't care about parity. I know people talk about parity. Parity's boring. That means teams that no one cares about make it to finals or playoffs. Who cares? I don't want parity. I want competition. I want there to be that if Golden State gets there, the team that they play in the East at least gives them a tough 6-game series. I don't want to see an easy 4-game sweep. I might want to see a hard 4-game sweep. I don't care if it's a hard fought 4 games, but I at least want to see a competitive game. 2 teams that are worthy of being there. And that turns me to the biggest event in the world every 4 years. The World Cup is currently going on right now. And as we speak today, there was one of the biggest upsets probably in the World Cup, with Mexico taking a 1-0 victory over Germany. That's huge for Mexico. Mexico is a country that prides themselves on soccer. They are a country that is definitely the rival of the United States. We always go to battle with them. When we play at Azteca, our guys always say, you know, how intense it is. And it's good for Mexico. They get that 1-0 victory. They get 3 points on the table. They're trying to get out of the Group F. And it's going to be fun to see what more these other 2 teams do. Another upset that I think is an upset, Matt Santos, you would know more about this. But Serbia beating Costa Rica 1-0. Costa Rica's not an awful team. I didn't know much about Serbia, but that looks like an upset to me. Guys that know soccer, if you know more about soccer, please call, message, tweet, something. Let me know that I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. Or agree with me. Give me something on that one. But just in general, the World Cup is so fascinating. There's so many things that go on. Yesterday, you saw Lionel Messi disappoint. And it seems like he likes to do that on the biggest stage. Argentina tied Iceland 1-1. Iceland's a good team. But when you have a guy that's considered one of the top 2 players in the world, and let's be realistic here, I'm going to piss off a lot of Messi fans, but Messi is officially, permanently number 2. Number 2. Cristiano Ronaldo is by far the LeBron James. He's by far the best player in the world, scoring a hat trick to tie Spain 3-3 in the first game for Portugal yesterday. Portugal was going to be my overall pick for the World Cup. I'm putting it out here right now. Portugal, I think Ronaldo will not be denied. He's done everything else. He's won the European. He's won in La Liga. He's won Champions League. He needs to get this World Cup, and I don't think he's going to be denied. I think he's the type of guy that has that look in his eye. I don't think Cristiano Ronaldo will be denied. I'm thinking a Portugal World Cup championship, and we won't hear the end of it from Matt Santos if they do. But Ronaldo deserves it. He's the greatest player of our generation, arguably the greatest player of all time. He's right up there with Maradona, right up there with Pele. You can put him up there with those two guys, and we'll see where it goes. But the World Cup is underway. It's in Russia. United States obviously didn't make it, and it's really because of just the United States. They did it to themselves. They continue to put up an old, tired, sorry group of players that have had some good things happen, but they're not good enough on the world stage. The Josie Altidores, the Clint Dempseys, the Michael Bradleys, those guys won't cut it. I'm a fan of Christian Pulisic. I like some of their other younger. I like Yedlin, but they just need to continue. This group that we saw play the other day against France and get a 1-1 tie against France before the World Cup starts in that friendly, it was a surprising tie. But that was a lot of young players. That was a lot of young talent, hungry guys that are trying to prove themselves. A bunch of guys had their first caps on the international stage. They want to prove themselves to be guys that can be players in for this United States team. And we have a lot more players now playing overseas than we ever have. We have a lot more talent in the MLS than we've ever had. They need to really start looking to change the guard. Michael Bradley has been our captain. He's been our center fielder. And I will say, Michael Bradley, the one thing that the man always does is hustle. He hustles. You will see him sprinting back at all times to play defense. He will run up and try and run the offense. But he's just not a good enough player. He's not a good enough player to be a center mid and lead an international team to victories and to a World Cup. He's not good enough. We need a better guy to run that center. And in terms of Clint Dempsey's getting old quick. He has skill, he has touch, but the guy is not the player that he once was. Is he better than Landon Donovan ever was? Yeah, because Landon Donovan was meh. But that doesn't mean much. Josie Altidore needs to never make an international appearance again. The guy is not a player that he was a disappointment. He was a young player, 18-year-old, coming out like a bat out of hell, big body guy that should be a lot better than he is, and he's not. He gets beaten a lot. His touch is not very good. His finishing isn't great. And we just need better players on the international stage if the United States wants to compete. And it needs to start with getting a better coach. We're still coachless right now. We have an interim coach, so we need to get a good coach. And we need to really work the youth. What we were doing wasn't working, so why not take chances? And we just won the right to host with Mexico and Canada in 2026, and we're going to get the automatic bid. And the sad part is we might actually need it if we continue to do things in the United States like we have been. Speaking of the US of A, US Open golf going on right now. And it is the fourth round, the final round. In the first two rounds, it looked like Dustin Johnson was going to run away with it. He was -4 overall. He was ahead. I think the second guy was -1. And then on Saturday, Shinnecock really took hold. And it showed you the tough course that it is. It ate everyone up, including Dustin Johnson. He shot +7. +7, and that put him in a tie at +3 for the lead going into day 4. And there's now guys that are hungry. There's the Justin Roses. There's Webb Simpson, who's making a run. Henrik Stenson's there. Kopka's there. Reed is there. There are some talented players that are now breathing down his neck, and he's currently tied for the lead at +3 still. He just got through the first hole. He's even. But this is going to be fun to watch. And a lot is said now that I don't know who I was talking to, but I said the winner might be -4. And that seems like it's going to be low. I think the winner of this event might be -1 or even. Shinnecock Hills Golf Course has proven to be as tough as anyone thought it was going to be. And it makes these players look human. We can look at just some of the great players who didn't make the cut. Tiger Woods didn't make the cut. Jordan Spieth did not make the cut. Graham McDowell didn't make the cut. Who else over here? I'm just looking down the list. There's just so many guys. Bubba Watson doesn't make the cut. Cale Schwartzel, Matt Kuchar. If you're a fan of golf, you know these names. And these guys, and they were shooting, I'm up in the plus 14. Sergio Garcia shot plus 14. I know he's on the back end, but he's still a talented player. Guys that you assume are going to make cuts. So it's just something that it's disappointing. I know Rory didn't make the cut. Rory had a terrible, terrible game. And I have a question now coming in off a text from my brother, David Cuesta. He's the same guy you also heard on the intro. Want to contact him about intro or just talk to him? Find him on Twitter at dcuesta308. But I'm getting a 3-part question from David. One of them, first one I'll touch on, is the Patriots dynasty over? That's a tough one. For me, as long as Belichick and Brady stay together, as much as they might hate each other, their dynasty is not over. Gronkowski, and I know Brady threatened to retire, I guess, if Gronkowski was traded. That is tough. That's a tough pill to swallow. But if you have Gronk, if you have Brady, if you have Belichick, you're not going to lose many games. And I'm just looking at their depth chart now. People think they lost so much. They really didn't. They still have Chris Hogan as a receiver. They have Jordan Matthews backing him up, who's a talented kid. They have Julian Edelman. They have some good players. Running backs, they just picked up Sony Michel, who might just be their number one guy. They still have Rex Burkhead. They still have James White, Mike Gillespie, Jeremy Hill, Brandon Bolden. All these names that they have. They have Dwayne Allen backing up Rob Gronkowski, who was a good player for a long time. Their line is still stout. And it's tough to say that dynasty is going to end anytime soon because of all the talent that they have. And now I look at the defensive end. Kyle Van Noy leading them at linebacker. Donta Hightower. They have the McCourty twins now. They have Devin playing safety. Jason playing corner. Stephen Gilmore still at corner. Patrick Chung still at safety. In terms of rushing, Malcolm Brown as defensive tackle. They have a lot of talent still left and right. And he's a defensive guy, so you know the defense is going to come and play well. And you know Tom Brady is going to make throws on the offense, even though he's getting older. So is the dynasty over? No. And another reason is because they play in the AFC East. The Dolphins are going to be a mess. I think I just saw in a group that I'm in, John Natoli, our buddy, said that Nathan Peterman and A.J. McCarron are splitting reps in camp. That's scary for any Bills fan. A.J. McCarron should come and destroy that competition, but he's splitting first-team reps with Nathan Peterman, who threw 5 interceptions in one game. I'll remind you guys of that. 5. Count them. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. 5. That's it. 5. And they gave up Tyrod Taylor. So the Bills are a mess. The Dolphins, I don't think, are going to be a good team. The Jets could be better, but are they a threat to the Patriots? No, because I don't think the Jets are a true contender. They might be a 8-8 team if they're good. Maybe if they get on a good run, contend for a wild card spot. They're not going to win the division, though. As much as Jets fans want to see Sam Darnold come in, throw 40 touchdowns for 4,000 yards, we have a better chance of seeing Teddy Bridgewater start, possibly get traded, or Josh McCown start, and Darnold sit all year and learn. We have a good stable of running backs on the Jets. Our line is better. Our defense should be good, but I still think the Patriots will be the Patriots. I still think they get 11 to 13 wins and have a chance once they hit that playoffs. If you have Tom Brady and you make the playoffs, you have a chance. So, no, the Patriots dynasty isn't over. Second question, thoughts about the World Cup coming to America? I think it's a good thing for America, and I think in terms of a lot of these Olympics, World Cup, these events cripple economies of smaller countries. It really hurts them because they have to build so many structures in order to house a lot of the games that go on. In the United States, we have 1,000 stadiums that could hold World Cup caliber events. All you have to, honestly, if you just convert collegiate football stadiums into soccer fields, take the Big House over in Michigan, who holds 100,000 plus people. Just take the Big Ten schools, basically, and the SEC schools, and turn them into their stadiums into soccer fields, and you're housing 80, 60, 100,000 people in World Cup events. So it's unbelievable what they can do. So I think America's a great spot for the World Cup. I think it's pretty cool that we did a joint one with Canada and Mexico. Canada's going to be playing 10 games. Mexico's going to be getting 10 games. It's exciting for both of those countries. It's exciting for the United States to be hosting. We're going to get 60 games. But again, in between those three countries, we're ready for this. Canada has their CFL stadiums that can definitely play soccer. They have soccer up there as well. So we have soccer stadiums ready there. Mexico obviously has a soccer league, so they have stadiums ready there. So I think it's a great thing at coming. The final was in MetLife in New Jersey, which is awesome. Anyone listening that has access to giving out free tickets, hi, my name is Alex Cuesta. I run the Sports Opinions podcast, and I like soccer. But I think it's a great thing that it comes to the United States. Quick comment from my wife, Julie. She wanted to say that Brady said he's going to retire sooner than later. That's interesting. That's pretty new because this is also the guy that said he wanted to play until he was 45. Maybe Gisele's getting in his ear. But if Tom Terrific goes, the dynasty goes. So, David, you might be onto something. If Tom Brady goes, that dynasty's done. I don't think Belichick is a good enough coach to win consistently with a guy like Brian Hoyer, who's Tom Brady's backup. And they also traded away Jimmy Garoppolo, who's the future of that team. So that could be, if Brady goes, that dynasty's done. On to the third question from David. Do you think teams might give up too many stars in the NBA this offseason? That's interesting. The stars seem to want to move. Kawhi Leonard said that he wants out of San Antonio. LeBron is going to move. Chris Paul's a free agent. Kevin Durant's a free agent. LeBron is going to opt out. I think DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry are going to move on from the Raptors. One of those two is going to get traded. It's something that, who am I missing? I'm missing someone. Kyrie might get traded. There's rumors of him in the trade block. Too many stars. Will they move? It's interesting because the one spot that the stars aren't going to move, I don't think Durant's leaving Golden State. I think they're going to re-sign him. I think they're going to do whatever it takes to re-sign him. So the one team that people might hope lose a star or two is going to be the only team that keeps their four great players together in Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant. Where LeBron, the rumors, he has a bevy of teams, and I'm going to talk about where LeBron goes in a little bit. And I actually had a touch for free agency coming up, but really, we could talk about it now, actually. LeBron, the teams that is rumored, Cleveland is in the running still. A lot of people are thinking the Lakers, which it makes no damn sense for him to go over to Lakers. The Sixers are there. There's a few teams that are there. I think the serious ones are actually the Lakers, Sixers, and Cleveland. His movement could really spell the difference. I don't think he wants to go to the West, and especially LA, because what does LA have to offer? Even if Los Angeles gets Paul George, which they're rumored to get him too, what the hell did Paul George show you this year? He showed you that he can be a 20-point-ish guy playing next to a dominant alpha male like Russell Westbrook, and then he also shows you that he disappears come playoffs time. And that's something that should scare LeBron, because LeBron has seen disappearing acts in the playoffs. He's had to carry teams. And to think that if you go over there as LeBron, and if Paul George comes, if Lonzo doesn't take that next step, and if Isaiah Thomas is still there, that mistake already happened once, but if Lonzo doesn't take that next step, and if Kyle Kuzma gets a sophomore slump, he's going to be carrying another team and then having to get through the West instead of the East. I likely think that LeBron is going over to the Sixers, and it's something that my man Brandon Scoop B Robinson, predicted right on this podcast a while ago that LeBron to the Sixers was a realistic possibility. So I think all teams are going to do their due diligence. I think that if I want to make predictions, does Paul George go to the Lakers? Probably. Paul wants out of OKC. He didn't play well. I think Lakers are a place that he would like to be at, because him playing there makes more sense, and if LeBron doesn't come, he's the alpha. Where does Kawhi go? Kawhi might sit another year, because Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs are a smart team. Unless they are going to completely rob a team of all their talent in the West, I don't think they're going to trade Kawhi to a team in the West. He has a better chance of going over to the East, to a place where they don't have to see him. And they're going to want a fool's ransom. They're going to want your whole team and your picks for like the next 9 years. Because they're not going to give up a player as talented as Kawhi Leonard. Like I said, they'd probably rather have him sit a full year than trade him and get peanuts for him. So the Kawhi situation is interesting. I don't think either side is going to budge, and I think it's going to be something where we're going to watch a few heads butt this offseason. CP3 can move, but I think CP3 is going to stay in Houston, like I think Durant is going to stay in Golden State. I mentioned either DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry leaving Toronto. I really think one of them are going to go. I think you can get more for DeRozan, even though DeRozan had a historic year. They got rid of their coach, Dwayne Casey, after a great year, a great few years. And even though DeMar DeRozan set franchise records, you still got swept by a bad Cavaliers team when you were the number 1 seed in the East. You can't let that happen. And you had to smell blood. The Cavaliers were a weak team. The Celtics were hobbling around without Kyrie or Gordon Hayward. And you had to think, if you were the Toronto Raptors, that this was our year, and you messed it up. So as good as DeMar DeRozan did, I think one of those two between Lowry or DeRozan leave, if not both. Because if you look at it, you can get a good amount of players back for a scorer and a bona fide star like DeMar DeRozan. I will not call the man a superstar, because superstars get things done in the playoffs. But he is a star. You can get a lot for DeMar DeRozan. And with Lowry, you can get some return, but his age is going to limit the return that you can get for him. But there are teams that will be willing to take either of those two guys. So one of them is going to move. Now, in terms going back to David's question, are there going to be too many? Are people going to give up too much for the stars? That's going to be interesting. It's a star-driven league. Everyone's looking for that big three. ESPN put up a graphic that made me nauseous about the Lakers, assuming that they pick up George and James, the trade that they would have to do to get Kawhi over there as well. Assuming that there's a draft pick playing center and Lonzo playing at point guard. I think it was like Kuzma, Ingram, Randall, and another player getting traded to go over. But it's like something like that. That's assuming that both George and James go over there. If they do and they create a quote-unquote super team, and if it consists of Kawhi, James, George, Lonzo, and whoever they pick up at center, I hate to break it to Lakers fans, that team still wasn't good enough to beat Golden State. Sorry. That team as constructed, with Paul George, who disappears, with Kawhi Leonard, who I never thought he had an attitude problem, but this shows that he has some issues, and with LeBron James, who's only getting older, and Lonzo Ball, who's not even a star yet in the NBA. We don't know what he's going to be. And where's the depth on that team going to be? Who is the depth there? You're giving up Ingram. You're giving up Kuzma. You're giving up Randall. What are you going to do? And that means you're not going to re-sign Lopez either. So there goes your three-point shooting center and big man, 7-footer. So while this fantasy team seems great, the last time the Lakers tried to make a great fantasy team consisted of Steve Nash. And we saw how well that team went with Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, and Kobe. That went really great, LA. So you might want to keep your fantasies in check and play more realistic ball and build your team because you have young talent. So will teams give up too much? I hope not. I hope GMs are smarter. I hope Magic Johnson in Los Angeles is smarter. But we shall see, Dave. I think that one is kind of up to a who knows, which is a shitty answer to give. Who knows? But we have to wait and see. And maybe we'll revisit that question after July 1st, because July 1st is when the frenzy starts. So maybe a week after July 1st, we'll revisit that question to see what teams have given up, because LeBron will probably by then have given his answer, and then the puzzle pieces will all fall. So we're going to get on to another topic that I'm interested in, because we're talking about the NBA, and that is, something that people are passionate about. It's the playoffs and division champions getting automatic bids and teams that are weaker getting in, especially weak teams in the East getting in instead of stronger teams in the West. So my question for everyone that I want to think, and I'll get my answer, is should pro leagues do away with divisions, or should they even do away with conferences? you look at it and division champions, and this happens in the NFL, you'll get an 8-8, 7-9 division champion hosting a 10-6, 11-5 wild card team. That just grinds a lot of people's gears to watch that happen. And, so should pro leagues do away with it? I think the NFL needs to do away with division champions. And possibly in the division rivalries in the NFL are still strong, so I don't think divisions should leave, but it would just hurt the rivalries as well. So it's a tough question. I think a lot of leagues are going to eventually go to getting rid of divisions. You're just doing one full conference. And the top 8 teams in each conference will be the teams represented, and the seeding will go according. That would break away a lot of rivalries. But if you look at the NBA, the rivalries they're built from playoff matchups. They're not built from regular season in the NBA. Would anybody know that the Raptors and the Celtics are really in the same division? Is there really a rivalry between division there? No. The rivalry was going to start if both teams made the Eastern Conference Championship, which the Raptors screwed up their part. But that's where the rivalries begin. They begin in the playoffs in a sport like basketball. In a lot of sports, that's where the rivalries happen. Now, take away the Yankees and Red Sox, they're storied. But you look, the Knicks and Heat, the Knicks and Pacers, neither of those teams are in the same division. They're in the same conference, and they've had such great conference rivalry games. And even in football, playoff games are major rivalry builders. The Colts and the Patriots, the Broncos and the Patriots, wherever Peyton Manning was versus the Patriots, that was the rivalry. Jets and Pats have a small rivalry. All the division teams have a small rivalry. They play each other tough in football. But if you did away with divisions, I don't think anyone would cry about it. Because the set rivalries will stay, but it would open a lot more up for that 7-9 division winner in a bad division. Like the AFC South was an awful division for a while. And 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 would be great. So it's, different. That if they did away with divisions, it might make things better. And it might... And, my wife just chimed in. Divisions are harder because of the teams that are in them. So it's not very fair since certain teams have more challenging schedules getting into the playoffs. And I completely agree. Colton Gesser, your favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the AFC North is a gauntlet. Granted, the Browns have been terrible forever. But you look at the Bengals who are rising. You look at the Ravens who have a Super Bowl in the past decade or two, one of those. But the Steelers, they have one of the toughest divisions every year. Do away with that division. There is no rivalry with the Browns or the Bengals, so that would be gone. But I guarantee the NFL would schedule the Ravens every year. And, leagues might argue that they use the divisions for tiebreakers. And that's all well and dandy and great and all. But do you really need to do something that in depth for a tiebreaker? Just, you have a certain number of stats that you can use. So I think doing away with divisions might be something that modern sports go with, and it might be the best move to do going forward. Last but not least, my last topic I'm going to touch on today, and for anyone that's listening, thank you again. You're listening to the Sports Opinions Podcast live stream with your host, Alex Cuesta. Last topic I'm going to touch on, NCAA football. There were some new rules that came out involving transfers. And there's something now that they're saying which is good for the players. Players won't have to seek permission from their current school before transferring anymore. Before, when a player wanted to transfer, they needed to seek permission from the school to seek a transfer, and then the schools were able to block certain schools from talking to this player. So, say player X was at Alabama, and he wanted to transfer. That means Alabama would be able to block him from going to any other SEC school. So that includes LSU, Texas Tech, Florida, all these other SEC schools, big-time programs that they could go to, and could block them from going to Ohio State, Michigan, other rival teams that they might see this player in a national championship, which is totally unfair. They would be able to block this player from going anywhere of merit. And that leaves a lot of these players to go down to junior college, play a year in junior college, and then come back up and go play their final year at a big school, where now they won't have to seek permission anymore. The moment they give their intention to transfer, the word goes out and any coach can start to contact that player, and they can go to any school they want. Now, the article I read said that the conferences are at liberty to add more stringent rules on top of this rule, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Coaches can do whatever the hell they want. They can leave schools. They can go to wherever school they want, that they get a new contract, new job at will. Their promises to kids mean nothing. Their contract they signed with that school means nothing. But they're going to hold these student athletes to a different standard just because they have a 4-year scholarship. So you're telling me a scholarship is more important than a signed contract to a person that's getting paid? So it's a good step giving the athlete a little more freedom. Now, I didn't see anything in there to say if the athlete transfers, if they still have to sit a year, because that's always been a stupid rule to me, that if an athlete transfers, they have to sit a year of eligibility to wait. Why make them sit? Just let them play. If they transfer, let them play. It didn't change anything. If you gave them the permission to transfer, let them suit up and play right away. I think it's the dumbest thing they make kids sit a year. So that I think is hopefully something that also comes so that when players do make the move from one school, they can start to have an impact right away. These kids are only given 5 years to complete 4 years, so they're allowed to use a red shirt, and that transfer year to sit out is counted as their red shirt year, which is dumb. Another rule that actually might be helpful towards all of this is the red shirt rule is now different. Before it was if you played, I don't even know how much of a game, you automatically were counted as a full year of eligibility. So if you got injured, the school then needed to put in for an injury, like an injury request, yada, 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 and it would have to be a fiasco. Some guys got accepted and some guys got denied. Now you can play up to 4 games and then shut yourself down for the season, and it will count as a redshirt year. It won't count as a year used. So that means if you get injured within these 4 games, if you play these 4 games and you're not up to where your coach wants you to be, they can redshirt you game 4 and say, all right, you're done for the next 6 games plus bowl game, whatever it is, 7, 8 games plus bowl game if we make it, and you still have 4 more years to play. That's a great rule. There's some kids that come in and play as true freshmen that just aren't ready. They're 18-year-old kids playing against 22, 23-year-old men. They're just not ready. Coaches think they're ready. They're great in spring. They're flying around. And then, boom, they're just not ready to go. They can't do it like the coaches thought they were. Okay, no foul. You played in a few games. Now we'll redshirt you, and you'll be ready to go in the next 4 years. We'll get you a little bit bulkier. We'll get you more understanding with the playbook, and then you could play. So that's another really good rule. Now, the NCAA is doing more and more to try and help the student athletes, it looks like. None of these I don't believe in were in the name of safety, thank God, because I'm tired of that lie of everything being in the name of safety. But again, like I said, they need to do away with the if you transfer, you have to sit a year, because that rule's awful. But they also did another dumb rule, which I brought up, and I'm going to bring up again. The fair catch within 25 yards on a kickoff, putting the ball at the 25-yard line. That just eliminate the kickoff. That's useless. Just eliminate it. Because if I'm a coach right now, I'm squib kicking everything. I'm putting everything on the ground just so I could give this kid a chance to mess up. Or I'm kicking it as high as I can in the air so that if they fair catch and put pressure on them to miss that fair catch, so then I can clock them and then I can get the ball. There's certain things that the NCAA, NFL, all football is doing in the name of safety that, to me, that I think is bogus. I think they're making it look like they're trying to be safer, but they're not. It's all about money in the end. And in terms of the collegiate athletes, I'm on the side of people that want these kids to get paid. My idea is a little different. I don't think they should get paid from the schools or from the NCAA. I think they should be able to have permission to make money off their likeness and their signature. So I digress with that. That's another whole topic. But in the end, the rules need to start continuing to make it football. And that fair catch rule doesn't make it football. Here's me hoping that both the XFL and the AAFL are better leagues in the spring. And we can see some real football happen amongst those two. And hopefully they can eat up some of the viewership of the NFL. I know I'll watch the first AAFL game, which I think is happening this upcoming spring, next year, 2019. So I'm excited for that. And also, XFL, I think as their tryouts out, your boy might go out for trying out for a kicker. So here we go. All right. And with that, we conclude this live stream of the Sports Opinions podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. I want to thank my beautiful wife, Julie Cuesta, for participating as she always does. I want to thank my brother, David Cuesta, for not only providing the starting beat for my podcast every single week, but also for participating. I really appreciate both of them and their participation. The beat you're listening to right now is by none other than Joe Hackett, better known as Hack. If you go on his Twitter, you can see some of the songs. One of the songs he's let out, he's looking to drop another one this Tuesday. You can find him on Twitter at JoeyHack_. Definitely go give him a listen. Aspiring rapper, solid rapper. Again, thank you for listening to the Sports Opinions Podcast live stream. I'll be going back next week with another interview and another recorded podcast. But I'm going to try and do these at least once a month and make it fun. So again, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Have a good one.